Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the next edition of Dream Reality with Idunn Consulting. So this is a podcast series where we introduce change leaders, innovators, dreamers, and experts in different parts of the industries, different sectors, and different parts of leadership and strategy management. Dream Reality was born because during the last 18 months, we've gone through so much change. And as humans, we really don't like change. We want to go under the duvet and hide from it. But over the last year, we have really embraced it. And this is a time to keep that momentum. So hopefully through this series, we will open your eyes and ears to some new ideas, something that you can implement within your business or your life to really keep you driving forward. And I am really excited today, all the way from Shanghai in China, to have Tadi. And Tadi is an expert and leading change maker in the area of digital and digital transformation. And this is really his area of expertise. And he leads workshops and speaks to universities both in China and in the UK on this topic. So, Tadi, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Alison. Just a brief background. I am from Zimbabwe. It's a small country in Southern Africa. I basically grew up there, did my undergraduate studies in economics in Zimbabwe, after which I started working in the banking sector. And by chance, it wasn't even planned, an opportunity came up for me to pursue my postgraduate studies, but also to work in Shanghai in China. So I moved to China in 2015. Basically, when I started, I was working on a lot of consulting, basically trying to help Chinese companies go global. And this was kind of the first wave of Chinese companies trying to explore the foreign market, basically when they had grown rapidly within the local market and there wasn't enough, not a lot of space for growth for local companies at the time. So my job was basically to help them explore the foreign market, understand what sort of digital tools they can use to get foreign consumers. And over this process, something hit me. I realized that this works both ways, also for international companies that were looking to access the huge Chinese market. That's when my journey in digital transformation started, because I started to help a lot of foreign companies, a lot of foreign institutions access the Chinese market, find partners here, access the right sort of tools. And this sort of navigating complexity and uncertainty became very important for me as an individual, because part of the process was learning by doing, but another part of it was also learning on past experiences and realizing that as you move in the process towards your dream or towards realizing your goals and ambitions, sometimes the path is not always as clear as you think it is from this side of the story. But the more you go through it, the more you realize that all the different puzzle pieces kind of come together and the dots really do connect. So that taught me a lot about just trusting the process and being able to push myself into uncomfortable situations where I would have to dig deep and try to find what would be the optimal solution in whatever it is that I'm doing. So today I am the digital lead at Nexilia Solutions. And I guess what I do now is basically the same, but a little bit more complex. You know, we are living through the COVID-19 pandemic, and we're basically in the time of VUCA, as they say, you know, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And a lot of companies, be it global corporations and local companies here, are really thinking about what to do in the next 5 years, how to rearrange their strategy, how to pivot. And this is where we come in, not only with solutions centered on products and processes, but also on people, because ultimately it's not about technology, it is about people.
Yeah, and we'll touch a little bit on that, on the personnel aspect as we go through this. But I think just touching back on something that you said about, you know, being in this COVID time, and you mentioned a few buzzwords in there like pivot and digital strategy. And they, you know, if you open any, you know, the Financial Times, HBR, or any other publication, they seem to be in every article. So, you know, a lot of businesses, no matter the size, has really had to adapt very, very quickly over the last 12 to 18 months, whether it be larger organizations having to have people work from home, whether it be they had shop stores and physical retail shops and they had to move to online e-commerce platforms. And some people are putting that under the umbrella of a digital transformation. So do you think that that is a digital transformation, or is that a reaction?
Yeah, very good question. Basically, you could put it in two parts. There is, of course, the knee-jerk reaction, which is basically trying to scrap around, pivot, trying to make sure that everything stays afloat. And that is particularly happening in companies that had not prepared, or what we call in the industry, future-proofing your business. But digital transformation itself is not a trend. It's something that has been happening for a very long time. We have had talks about the fourth industrial revolution, right? We know the first industrial revolution was the steam engine, then came the mass production lines, and from then on we have the computers, and now we are in the age of artificial intelligence, IoT, cloud computing, for computing, etc. So companies were already preparing for that jump, but unfortunately it had to be a forced jump. And some landed quite well, some didn't. But then again, this is all about strategy. So to answer the question, for us, digital transformation is trying to help companies not only future-proof their businesses, but also figure out how best to maximize productivity in their employees, and also ensure that as they move forward, as they transition to this future that we are all headed into, no one is basically left behind in terms of the processes, in terms of the people, and in terms of the technology.
I think that's really interesting. And you just made me think of something as well. And, you know, it's a little bit around the buzzword of pivot, because I find I'm very uncomfortable with the word pivot, because to me, pivot means complete change of direction. It doesn't mean moving your retail store online. For me, that's a compliment. And and I think that really, if you have a proper strategy and long-term strategy, within that, you should have a roadmap for the future to be using the technologies. And in a situation like COVID, it's just you pick those aspects of the roadmap, or those forks in the road, and you just fast track them. And so you should already have that concepts in there rather than doing the reaction. So do you feel that over the last year specifically, the issue has not necessarily been in you wouldn't really class it as lack of preparedness or lack of awareness, but more lack of proper future strategy?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. And you're right about pivoting. A lot of the time when people talk about pivoting, they focus on a complete 360-degree flip, total change. Mm-hmm. But from experience and from working with companies that have actually had to pivot, it's nothing like that, Alison. It's any pivot, of course, is centered on something, right? There's some fulcrum there. There's some center. And what companies are doing when it comes to pivot and codes is trying to ensure that they can use the best of their skills, the best of their abilities to optimize themselves, or to optimize their reaction to the new reality. Mm-hmm. So whenever we talk about pivoting to businesses, or even to small businesses, we are always like, you do not have to start afresh. You have to use the networks you've built, the skills you've acquired, the people you've engaged, and to use that as the ingredients to find something new, to find something that can propel you. It might be temporary, it might be something that's more long-term, to ensure that your business is more sustainable. So ultimately, we encourage businesses to dig deep, to think about strategy, because at the end of the day, it all comes back to strategy. And strategy goes beyond some technological tool you're going to adopt, some sort of process or product that you're going to make, but it's all encompassing. And it's very, very important that organizations get their strategy right. And this is basically the core of any successful pivot.
Yeah. Oh, and look, speaking to the converted, I'm a strategy, and my passion is strategy. And I believe that that is your foundation. No matter what, you need to have that foundation. But I think that, you know, one of the challenges that I see when I talk to businesses and business leaders about strategy and about, you know, digitizing processes and things like that is, but I'm too small a business, or that's only for, you know, the big, you know, the LinkedIns, the IBMs, the Siemens, that's just for them. What's your perspective on that?
Well, my perspective is actually that's completely false. When you talk about strategy, it's not about size. It's not even about scale. We find that when we work with the bigger companies, it's very difficult for them to adapt their strategies. They are not as agile as smaller businesses. So as a small business, you should definitely be more agile in terms of your strategy, and be more open to new realities, because that will enable you to scale at your own pace and to also retain your original small identity as you grow, because there are certain aspects about being small that are actually way better than being big. So when it comes to strategy, I'm sorry, scale is not an excuse, size is not an excuse. You really, really have to have a strategy in place that will help you grow at your own terms, at your own pace, and to achieve the sort of results that you want to achieve in the market. So strategy is strategy, big or small.
I love that. Strategy is strategy. That's it. So you mentioned people before and the personnel factor. And I read once before that we invest so much on personnel training. So for example, if you take the realm of HSE, you know, in some industries, HSE training is so intense and they spend millions of dollars on training. But then when it comes to rolling out new platforms, new systems, you know, new anything to do with digital technology, we just kind of like, okay, on, you know, the 5th of June, you will get this new icon on your desktop and you need to start using it. And yeah, there's some training on this link. And okay, good luck. And the old system will retire on the 1st of July. So is that really an inhibitor? Is that very common? Or is that just a bit of you know, old wives' tale in the industry?
Yeah, I think it's a reality, Alison. And unfortunately, a lot of businesses lose traction because of the way they approach technological transformation or digital transformation. You would find that back in the day, you talk about 10 or 8 years ago, if you're working in any department, any tech or digital problem was basically calling the IT help desk, right? Some guy comes to your computer, they help you sort it out, but then you go back to what you were originally doing. And unfortunately, that's how we still think about technology. We still think that any digital upgrade or any sort of digital transformation is going to be something that's relegated to somebody who's in the technological space or somebody who's in the IT department. But the reality is these digital tools are becoming more and more important to how everybody does their job. And the lines between offline and online are blurry, right? We have a lot of hybrid working models that exist now. So what I do think when it comes to introducing new digital platforms and the training of that in terms of digital skills, I think we are very much behind in terms of preparing workers for the future, both at when you talk about small businesses and when you talk about large corporations. You talked about health, safety, and environmental training in companies and how that's compliance related and why so much time and investment is put into it. And I think the same sort of time, effort, and investment should also be put in digital skills training. And this will not only make workers future-proof per se, but it will also increase the confidence of your workforce in understanding understanding that their skills are really important, and technology is a vehicle to make them more productive than something that's going to replace them at some point in time. So we really have to shape the conversation on digital transformation, on digital skills training, and on how we can improve the workplace and make it more future-proof, basically.
Okay. And do you think that that's going to change as we see a little bit of the change of guard with respect to the generations and the working age of the new, the postgraduates coming in that are much more digital native than myself? And I don't consider myself a dinosaur just yet, but certainly, I am not a digital native. I didn't grow up with mobile phones and things like this, but the generations that are coming into the workforce, and even the people that are coming into some of the management and leadership positions today, they are of those generations. So do you believe that that's really going to help drive a digital transformation? Is kind of almost going to mandate it?
Well, the truth is, digital transformation is going to happen, whether workers are prepared for it or not. But I think the conversation that we need to shape is, how do we get people to move with the times? And you're right, we have a lot of people coming in now into the workforce who are more digitally native. But I think one thing that we have to realize is this does not relegate the current workforce to being irrelevant.
I'm still relevant, okay.
Extremely relevant, actually. But this is now all about, again, it goes back to strategy and management. How do you complement this skill base that you have in your organization? How do you let the experience be translated to how the company operates to optimize performance? And this is something that a lot of companies are having difficulties with, because there are people who like to work on something that are not interested in managing people. There are people who excel at managing people that are being forced to work on processes and products. So it's really important to understand teams, to ensure that the strategy is not only moving from top down, but also everyone is involved. They have some sort of buy-in in where the organization wants to go, and ensuring that as you set your KPIs or your goals for your organization, that all these human aspects are integrated and people can actually see what it is that they are doing and how it's translating and making the organization successful in moving the company forward. I saw an interview a couple of years back. It was Elon Musk being asked about his recruitment strategy and how he treats people. And they asked him, what has been your biggest mistake in relation to how you treat people? And I'm just paraphrasing right now. And one of the things that he said was, for some employees, my biggest mistake has been to focus so much on the brain, on what they can do from an intellectual perspective, that I forgot that the heart is also important. And I think that's an important lesson for all of us. It's not always the top performing employees or the stars that we need to make our companies better. But we need teams that are sustainable, people that can work together, people that can cooperate from different generations or through different skill sets, and creating the sort of environment that makes this possible, where people can actually trust each other and can cooperate as peers and ensure that there's totally transparent feedback and basically openness in how processes executed in a business. It's very important. It's really, really important. And some of the businesses that I've seen that have become successful, particularly in competitive markets like Southeast Asia, have basically had that right. It has been about the team. And we're not talking about stars here. We're talking about people that can trust each other and that understand what the company wants to achieve, and that totally have an understanding of what is the goal of the strategy. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that, that's becoming here over in the West, that's becoming more and more prevalent as we see the rise of workplace psychological safety. And we have an interview in this series with an expert on that later on in a couple of weeks. So, because it's something that still is quite new here in the West, but you're absolutely spot on. Over in Asia, They are very good at that in some of the organizations. I just have a couple of final questions for you. So the first one being, what do you believe is the biggest inhibitor to organizations starting the digitization journey and the transformational journey that comes with that?
I think the biggest inhibitor, at least from my own experience, is seeking perfection, trying to wait for everything to be optimal before they start. And again, I'm going to emphasize that digital transformation is basically a learning by doing sort of an approach. As a small business, you really have to try out the tools that are at your disposal and see what works for you, what is the best fit for you. So it's important to try and fail. I remember in primary school, every morning we had a motto which went, try again. Mm-hmm. If at first you don't succeed, try again. The whole aim of that was perseverance will always yield success, right? Because that's the highest form of emotional intelligence. And we like to translate this into digital processes as well. A lot of companies have moved forward with one tool or one platform, etc., and that hasn't worked for them. And this has basically led them saying, okay, we are not ready for this. It's something that's expensive. But I think a lot of these tools have trial periods. They have people that are already using them. So investing in research, in strategy research, and in consulting to understand what sort of tool works for us, trying it out and adapting it or optimizing it to fit your own sort of business and system is very important. And this is what we always say to small businesses: 5 things. You need to be lean. You need to focus on things that are essential. You need to be agile. You need to quickly adapt to the existing situation. You need to leverage on the technologies that fit your system. And above all, you need to ensure that your innovation and strategic process is centered around people. And people are in 2 sides, right? On one side, you have the consumers, the people that ultimately use your products. On the other side, you have your staff, right? The people that drive the processes that your business is involved in. So this is basically what we deal with every day.
Yeah. And then our final question, before we come on to some recommendations that you have. You know, this series is all about the dream and the reality. And so I'd just like to hear how would you like to see this go forward? How do you dream that digital transformation will move forward? And then follow that up with the reality check. How do you think it will actually go forward?
Yeah, so recently I had a talk on AI ethics, where we were exploring some of the challenges related to artificial intelligence. And one of those challenges, of course, is the unintended consequences that come with AI. And also the fact that at some point that people believe that machines are going to replace us. And how do we shape that conversation in terms of change management? And from my perspective, what I would like to see in the future and what I believe the future will be, right? And back in the days when we thought about artificial intelligence and big data analytics, we thought that some robots will be driving our cars, right? There will be doctors, there will be everything. But over time, we've realized that the cars themselves have become the robots, right? The cars have become smarter, right? The homes have become smarter. So all these tools have become smarter and smarter, but they have not actually replaced the human. The human has remained at the center of it. And everything around him has enhanced itself. So this, to me, is the future I would like to see. I would like to see technology continue to be a complement to enhance our lives, to make our lives better, to give us the tools that we need in health, in basically in fitness, in terms of environmental management and economics. But ultimately not replace us in any way. this is the future I would like to see. And in terms of digital transformation, I would like the conversation to be centered on people, not on technology. I would like it to be something that's accessible. I would like a lot of consultants out there to realize that at the end of the day, it is about somebody who's sitting behind their desk and trying to express themselves in the best way they can to improve performance in the company. It's not about some software or some algorithm. And if we start from that point, if we start by thinking and realizing that it's not about technology, it's about people, we can actually drive a digital transformation process or push ourselves into a future that's actually beneficial and inclusive for everybody.
Wow, certainly a lot to think about there. You have, my mind is a bit blown there, lots and lots to think about, especially, you know, the human aspect and thinking about the, you know, the human from instead of the digital and how that really works together and how you can morph it. And I think that that's something that I agree that definitely something that is not appreciated. People think digital transformation and they just think the digital, but it's so faceted. So really definitely food for thought there. So as a final thing, I had dropped you a note to make a recommendation. So do you have a book or podcast that that you would like to share with us?
Well, I have an interesting book. It's actually on my shelf. It's called Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow by Daniel Kahneman. So the reason why I like this book is because it exposes you to the sort of innate biases that you do have. Our confirmation bias, right? How we get into an argument and we go on Google to prove ourselves and we think, okay, I'm right because I searched it in a certain way, right? Our selectivity bias, all these sort of biases that affect our decision making. The reason why this is important for me personally in digital transformation is because we are moving into a future where technology is ubiquitous, right? Where everything that we do at some point is going to be controlled by some form of algorithm, right? And if the people that are making these algorithms are not aware of the biases that exist within them, the outcomes of this are only going to make society more unequal and less empathetic. And when it comes to those two things, particularly empathy, I'm particularly an advocate for it because I believe by starting with empathy, we are able to not only understand people better, but also be able to drive the sort of progress that we need in society from every front, from technological aspect or any other aspect of our lives. So I'm a big fan of the book and I totally recommend it. It's a big one. It might be quite an intellectual read, but it's eye-opening.
Yeah, fabulous. And then lastly, do you have a song that just cheers you up when you're just having one of those moments?
Yeah, so I think for me that song that kind of puts me in a good vibe is Hall of Fame by The Script. So yeah, I really like the song.
Nice choice.
Yeah, I really like the song. It's an uplifting song. It always puts a smile on my face and it takes me. Yeah.
Fabulous. Well, look, Tadi, that's the end of our chat today. And you know, honestly, I think that you've hit on so many interesting points that I think the listeners will really resonate with. It's going to give them maybe some inspiration that digital transformation isn't just for the big guys, but it's something that everybody should be thinking of. The importance of strategy. Strategy is your strategy. I like that. I might borrow that phrase. And yeah, and as well, it's all about the human factor. Make sure that you have empathy, that you have your emotional intelligence toolkit with you. And when you're building up your processes, make sure that the human factor is involved. And as well, the awareness around the biases, as well as something that I've talked about that pretty much on every guest recording so far. So I think that that's really something that concerns so many people when you start talking about technology and things for the future. So really, thank you so much for your time today. I really enjoyed it, and really thank you.
Thanks, Alison. Okay.